Just one announcement that Nicole and her office and myself will be sending our board updated ethics training information and open meeting law information. I thought I printed out the signature sheets, but apparently I printed out the wrong one because it's been updated since I opened that last email on January 25th, which is not that long ago. Anyway, so we'll take care of that. And my understanding and Nicole's understanding is once you get the email, just forward it over to Wendy in Town Hall, and it's an acknowledgement that you've read through it and that you know what's what. You don't have to actually sign it and print it. And it would be an acknowledgement, a legal acknowledgement of that.
To who?
It'll be in the email, Wendy Stevens at Town Hall.
Yeah, I'll put everything in there, and we have to retake ethics too, even though if you're not due, they change the platform, so you gotta retake your ethics as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
How many times does one have to do ethics if one works for multiple municipal?
I know, yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My part-time job, my full-time job, and my volunteer job.
Yeah.
Anyway. Very,
Like Corey's, everything I do, everything I coach, everything.
absolutely,
Every time.
absolutely. Do we have any other announcements this evening? No?
No.
And is there any public comment before we open the public hearing? Okay, that being said, we have 4 of our 5 members here, and we would like to continue the meeting from December 21st. And do we have to read the public notice again? We read it in.
Yeah, we had
we
opened
read it
it.
in, that's right.
opened
So
it.
I would like to, approval and review of the minutes. Let's look at the minutes next, please. And the 11/16 minutes are available for review. That was our joint meeting with the Planning and Zoning Board. Our debut of a different way to do business. And before we actually vote on it, I'd just like to say that meeting was very productive, and I think it went very well.
Thank you.
I had
I agree.
my questions and concerns before, but I think it worked out very well. I think we should, in the future, consider doing that one to expedite business and expedite proposals that are going to need to come before,
There he is.
become before both boards. So are there any comments on the minutes? We're just reviewing the minutes, Brandon. Thank you for coming.
Sorry about that.
That's quite all right. Does anyone have any comments or anything else to add to the minutes? Would someone like to make a motion to accept the minutes as printed, as written?
I will make a motion to accept the minutes.
And do I have a second?
1 second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you very much. Okay, good. And now we can go on to the,
We just have one more set of minutes too, from the 21st.
Oh,
We didn't
okay.
have a quorum,
I didn't see that, sorry.
so just a very quick set of minutes,
Oh, the in and out.
in and out.
Okay. All right. You did read the public hearing notice, that's good. And we're here again in January. In February, rather. All right. I would like to entertain a motion to approve these minutes as written.
I'll make a motion to approve these minutes as written.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you. All righty. The time's not right on this computer.
We have
It's, like
7:07.
It's like 7:07?
7:00, okay.
Oh, what I got? 7:06?
I'm wondering if it would be acceptable this evening to take the hearings out of order. I know one's scheduled for 7:10 and one's scheduled for, the continuation is 7:05. The
Yes.
7:05 is going to definitely last more than 10 minutes. And it seems as though the 7:10 hearing is a little bit more,
Could be a little bit more straightforward.
more straightforward and won't
Well-
involve a lot of things. So with possibility, do you think that would be a wise decision, members of the board? Okay, so
And
we
While we're
have,
waiting for the time to pass, this brings us up to a good point of, under new business, if we
Yes.
can address the new business. Changing all hearing times to start at 7:05. That way it just blankets everything. Conservation's doing it, planning's doing
oh,
it.
so we don't have a 7:10,
So we don't have the increments anymore in case something happens, the hearing gets, out of
Extended,
sequence.
sure.
Everything is 7:05, and that way we can
Take
put
them
it in
in
whatever
whichever
order
order we want to take
see
them in.
fit. Yep, so
that-
we just need a vote to do 7:05 hearing times across the board.
Can we do that now while we're
Mm-hmm.
waiting for the time?
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I make a motion
That-
to make
Okay,
it 7:05
already?
start time.
Thank you.
I'll
Okay,
that
second.
motion.
And any discussion? It makes total sense. Thank you, especially
Yeah,
good
you're welcome.
example of how
Yeah.
tonight it would
Mhm.
definitely make sense.
Exactly, yeah, and they did it across the board, conservation planning and then
Sure.
zoning, so it just makes it easier.
Alrighty, and while we're waiting for the 2 minutes now, with the applicants, the Landrys, please come forward to the table. And there's a sign-in sheet there, I believe. Thank you. And I think you can read the public hearing notice before we actually open the hearing, too.
Mhm.
Would you like to read it, Eric?
Sure.
Thanks.
Okay, notice is hereby given that the zoning board of appeals will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, January 18th, 2023, 7:05. All right, so we're at February 15th, 7:10, to discuss the application for a variance submitted by owners Kayla and Chad Landry, owners of 102 Royalston Road North, also known as Assessors Map 1, parcel 201, Winchendon, Mass. 01475. Variance request to allow for the housing of poultry within 100 feet of a property line per section 5.2.4 of the Winchendon zoning bylaws. Said property is located in R80 rural residential neighborhood. The hearing will be held on the second floor of the auditorium at Town Hall, 109 Front Street, Winchendon, Mass. 01475. All interested persons should plan to attend. Alternative translation and accommodation for disabled persons is available by advance request.
Thank you. And again, do I have any members of the board who must recuse themselves because of a conflict of interest? All right, that being said, you're the Landrys?
Yeah.
Could you raise your hand? I need to swear you in. Do you swear to tell the truth on this testimony tonight about the variance, a special permit, rather?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. All righty. Are we on time? Yeah,
We're at
my clock says
7:11.
7:10.
Mhm.
Good. So I'd like to open the hearing. Could I have a motion to open the hearing, please?
Make a motion, open the hearing?
Second?
And all in favor?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. So Landry's, tell us what we need to do, what you're here to explain or talk to us about.
Be allowed to have our chickens on our property and our neighbors not calling animal control constantly on us
Yeah.
and reporting us every
Can
week.
you put the
Just speak
microphone a little
to the
closer,
microphone.
please?
Yeah.
Was just to, we want to be able to, we have a finger lot. I mean, we have 8 acres, but it goes back about 1,000 feet, and it's only 200 feet wide. You're not allowed to have a coop within 100 feet of a property line, so it's pretty much in the middle of our property right now, but it's still 100, so it's 100 feet, and probably less than 100 feet from her property. And either way, you'd have to put it back,
Sure.
in the woods, basically. in the back parcel there. And the neighbor just keeps complaining about, well, she doesn't like the roosters. We got rid of a bunch of them, but then we lost a bunch of chickens. And we can't, you need the rooster to breed, so we don't want to get rid of the roosters.
How many roosters do
Oh,
you
that's
have?
your, lot 64
Others.
is yours?
No, this
We
is
have two- we
201
have-
is theirs right here.
201 is yours?
Yeah, yeah.
And the house is near the road?
Yes, yeah, it's right, and you can see it right in the,
Okay,
it's way in the front there.
okay.
That's an odd-shaped lot.
Yeah,
Very interesting.
yeah.
Huh.
You don't wanna walk half a mile to get the chickens every day?
Yeah. Well, there's so many, there's,
No water?
you hear
They
the,
get
you hear the
eaten, too.
coyotes all night long, probably out there, they'd be gone.
Sure.
How big is the current coop?
6
6
by
by
8.
8, I think.
How many birds do you have?
It's about a little over
Probably-
20 now, I
Yeah,
think.
20 now.
How many roosters?
There's 2. We have a couple of baby chicks that might be roosters, but they'll go.
Okay. All right. How long have you had them there?
Since 2019.
Okay.
You plan on letting it just keep growing, or how are you gonna control the flock? Are you gonna,
Usually end up giving them away. We usually, I mean, I don't wanna have any
We lose
more.
some, and then
Yeah, I don't,
if we have too many,
I mean, I have chickens myself, so I know.
Yeah.
Same
They-
here.
they usually
Yeah.
get picked off
Pretty
throughout the
crazy,
year.
pretty
so-
quick.
yeah, we've just lost about 10 of them to a hawk. He was just sitting in the tree, and she finally caught him on the camera, just sitting up right above the run there. So now they're in there, enclosed run, so now they really don't.
Do you guys keep them in the run, or are they free-ranged?
They're in the run now.
Yeah, they haven't been
Yeah,
free-range
they
for
haven't
over
been
a year.
free range because she complained so much, and was taking pictures and stuff, but.
Is that 202 you're talking about?
Yes, correct, yep.
Is there trees dividing those property lines or anything?
Yeah, there's
Trees
probably,
and a fence.
yeah, there's trees, and then,
What's the, what is her complaint? Just the noise, or?
yeah, she just doesn't
the
like
roos-
the.
Are chickens going in her property, or?
She did say that she had chickens, but we had a bunch of turkeys that were over there, so I think
Our
she
turkeys.
missed,
Yours though, right?
Wild turkeys or?
Wild.
wild turkeys,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes, wild
They
turkeys.
dug up our lawn too, so.
I think, but I had never seen our chickens go. Usually they go to the cleared side over there.
Sure.
They were even contained when she was calling, so.
What's that, a little pond behind your house?
Yeah, it's like a little, it's like a pondish, yeah.
How long did you say you have had the chickens where they are?
Since we got them in 2019, they haven't,
The 19?
yeah, yeah, that's where the coop went, and it's been there since.
Have you always had a rooster since you've had
Yeah.
chickens?
Yes.
Yeah, she complained the first time, and we got rid of all our roosters, and then we were down to like 5 chickens, because everything was picking them off.
Mm-hmm.
So,
How large is your chicken house?
6 by 8.
6 by 8?
But it's probably only like maybe 6 feet tall, if that. It's
So
not,
You have to get a permit when you built, you didn't, because of the size of it.
I don't know, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I
probably.
think they probably
It's just
just
like a
didn't go
shed.
through the process, and now, because it's become a headache for the neighbor, now they're going through the process.
But
Is that
after-
correct? You didn't do anything before as far as permitting?
No, no, no,
And now that it's an issue with the neighbor,
yeah,
you're doing, so, right.
R80, that zone, you can have accessory.
Oh, absolutely.
They can do it as long as it's within, rather than 100 feet. That's what the variance is.
But that, yeah.
And that's the,
This board's in a variance, we have 3 criteria: size, shape, topography of the land, is it
Sure.
an unusual lot in the neighborhood? Would it be an allowed use if the lot, would they be able to do it if the lot was
of course,
similar? I mean,
right.
so,
So what I have with my chickens is I have a coop, like a kennel or whatever, and then I have a fenced area built around it that's within my property line, so my chickens can't go to my neighbors.
yeah.
So that might be an avenue that could at least appease that. It's not gonna stop the noise unless you build like a barrier, you know.
That's
Yeah.
what we have as well. We have the coop.
Yeah, we did have
A
a-
hard run and then a fenced-in area that is,
Yeah, they
Poultry.
haven't really been free-ranged in probably maybe 2 or 3 years now.
Okay.
It is nice to have them out, take care of the ticks and everything.
yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Sure.
oh, yeah, yeah.
But we lose too many of them that way anyway, so.
But we did build a nice, big, I don't know, pretty good-sized area with that, you know, the regular, like, dog, the little.
Even
green
just like
fencing.
a chain link fence, something that'll just contain them, but they can be outside enough
Yeah.
to, you know, feed the hawks and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
It seems to me like more the issue is just the noise from the roosters.
I think it's
That's-
more of a noise complaint,
Yes.
yeah.
Right. And that's legitimate, I mean,
Yeah.
if
it's-
you didn't have
my
a rooster, you'd
rooster's
probably
loud.
not wanna listen to somebody else's,
Hmm.
you know, so.
So how far is the structure exactly from the
Yeah,
property?
what is that?
It's like dead in the middle.
It's right behind that
So what
pond.
is the width of your lot there?
It's like, if you went, like where your pointer is, if you just went up a little bit,
Uh-huh.
like, I think you can actually see
Right there?
Right there.
down, no, come down, like,
Right, about right there.
yeah, I think, it's like right in the middle, like,
Right about
it
there?
couldn't be about any more
Can
in
you
the middle.
zoom in, Nicole, a little, or no?
I don't know if I can.
It's
zoom
right in the
or not.
middle, side to side, but it's right
Oh, yeah,
behind the house.
it's only probably 200, it's 100 feet from the back of the house, probably.
How does the other neighbor feel about it?
There isn't one.
Which,
They don't have an issue with it?
There's no other neighbor.
Oh.
yeah, we just have the one neighbor.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
Then the other guys that own the property next door, so they don't care, but,
I've lost my bearings. I'm off.
just when we had the
There we go.
roosters.
Last year,
Oh,
I'm sorry.
last year.
So last year, so you've had them since 2019, and this issue came up in 2022?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
No, I don't either.
Where's the coop on this map?
Or behind
Where that sand spot is, right behind those trees.
Right here?
no, go,
Right here?
no, go like.
By the shadow of the trees?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's in the shadow.
shade, yeah, see like the yellow thing, if you came up from that yellow thing, it's like near the water.
Go over to the,
Down, down,
I don't know.
down,
Right here?
and left.
Left? Right here?
Left,
More.
left,
More.
left.
Just in front of those trees?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, right where like the sand is, but it's
Okay.
like, it's
right-
like,
right
I guess it's a little, not quite in the middle, but it's more towards her side, but.
and can you get the other property in the picture there a little bit?
So what's the width of the property there?
I think it's only like, I want to say it's like 200 feet. Like, because the frontage, I think, is only 200, and it gets pinched
tapered
down to
down.
almost like,
There's no other neighbors to
Say
the
you're
other side.
somewhere around
No.
60 to 70 feet from the line.
So,
yeah.
can I ask this? So if there's no neighbor on the other side in that plot that says 241, I know that the coop has to be 100 feet from the property line, but there's nobody there. Can we,
You'd probably get a little more forgiveness on that side
Exactly.
than where you are right now, and it may not be convenient for your setup, but that may alleviate some of the complaints
headache,
from
yeah.
your neighbor.
My fear is just if that lot sells, because they've been putting houses in, so then it will be an issue again if we don't get
Yeah.
the variance.
Because that,
Oh, yeah,
that,
and
that
they-
lot, the only buildable spot is pretty much on our property line, because the water runs under the road into that piece, but I guess could move it until the time comes.
have you considered not having a rooster?
Not in this
Yeah.
time because of the
Yeah,
questionable food source.
yeah. And,
We
I mean,
can't just make more chickens
the
with a
chickens,
rooster,
the
so-
chickens are like, the baby chicks have like you used to be able to get 6 for $6, now it's 1 for $6.
Well, I have
Sure.
a rooster. We breed.
Yeah.
We do the same thing.
Yeah, we don't, the hens have laid all our chicks. We haven't had to do anything, so.
Right, right.
What do you guys think?
Well, let's see if there's anyone in the audience that has any comments or questions or concerns. Is there anyone? Could you state your name, please? Do you want to come over to the table, please? And I need to swear you in. Do you swear to tell the truth? Okay, thank you. And could you state your name again?
Christy Verbo.
Okay, and could you tell us what your concern or idea
I
is?
am actually at 104 Royalston Road North, so I'm right next door.
Okay,
Our main concerns were basically, not that they have the chickens, it's the roosters that are waking up our child. It's constant from 4 a.m. to like 8 or 9. There's not an hour that goes by that they're not screaming. During the warm months, we need to keep our windows closed, and you can still hear them in the house. As for the, I don't know on the other side of the coop, but as on that property line, there was construction fencing that was put up in October, that is now ripped down, knowing that we had complained that they were coming over to our property on multiple occasions, and it did first start in 2019 when I did call ACO, because I had 8 of them in my front yard, and at that point, we didn't know about bylaws or anything, so we just called and said, you know, can you just go talk to them and see, you know, can they keep them on their own property? I've had multiple interactions with the zoning officer at my house, through Agricultural Commission and the town manager for, I think it started in March, because it was getting really loud again. And it took a few months, and I was told through email that they were going to voluntarily move, and then there was the issue with the zoning, so they would have to pull permit. And 6 months later in December, it was pulled. So through all that time, they knew they were coming on my property, because I did let Agricultural Commission know, ACO know, and the zoning officer know multiple occasions. And the fencing was not fixed. There was construction fencing put up to that property line, because where their white fence comes down, the coop's right there where it stops, and then there was a green construction fence, and then they were digging under the white fence and the green fence and coming over. We had to put up fencing in our garden so they wouldn't go in and eat the plants and things like that, which is, you know, that's typical. We were gonna do it anyway because of the deers and things like that. So that's just our main concern is, you know, we can't enjoy our property because of the noise. Keeping the windows shut, you know, waking up my son 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning when he has to go to school, I mean, and they've had multiple months now to fix it, and to be told they would have to get rid of the roosters, and now we're here in February, almost a year later, so those are our concerns.
Thank you. I hear you.
Yeah, noise is an issue with roosters. Like I said, I got one. Luckily, my neighbor's got one too, so we just fight back and forth.
Yeah, my rooster, yeah.
Roosters.
Crowing wars.
Yeah, and they do go, my rooster, all night. He never.
All night, all day, it
Never,
doesn't, yeah.
there's not, it's not like 6 AM in the morning and they go, it's all night, so I understand that. And it can be frustrating for someone without chickens, because you don't wanna hear it, it's not yours, I understand that. So that fence, that white line there, that's a fence,
Mm-hmm.
and does it just end and then,
Yeah, it just ends.
it's just a here and there?
Yeah, I put construction fence like just inside of, like,
It's
just
on the
inside of the
property
line, just to, they wouldn't be able to get through it.
How
But they
tall?
haven't been free
How high
anyways.
is that?
That's 4 feet tall.
But they've been,
Okay.
And
Permanently
they don't
locked in.
fly, they've all been, the ones that can fly have been cut,
Yeah,
so.
yeah, so the issue is the rooster. Obviously, if you contain your chickens, they're not gonna get in her property, which is, you know,
Yeah.
ideal. You know, she shouldn't have to worry about chickens getting in a garden or just tearing up a yard, because they will do that.
Yeah.
I mean, the rabbits will do it anyways.
I mean, but turkeys will do that as well, but those ones aren't your problem. But I would say that the only way you'd be able to keep that rooster without bothering them as much is to create a solid barrier, at least facing her property line, that's gonna, you know, deflect a lot of that noise that he's gonna do. Is the coop, when you close it up, is it like solid?
Yeah, it's
It's not
like
like
it's like a
fence.
little baby house, yeah.
You need closing them in at night?
Well, there,
some of them roost out in the
yeah,
hard
there's like
run,
a
but it's
covered-
enclosed, but the
covered run too, but,
side that's open is facing the other property.
So my perspective on this is that as a zoning board, we have to look at the special permit as it is. And the issue is that it's not 100 feet from the line. So how do we feel about it not being 100 feet to the line? And is there an issue with the property because of that? You could have that thing smack dab in the middle, 500 feet away, and that rooster could go right up to that property line and cock-a-doodle-doo, and nobody could do it anything about it.
Correct.
I guess
That's not my concern. It is where the livestock thing is. We do have a right to farm here in Winchendon. And my concern is there a better place to put that?
Yeah.
Do you have a suggestion on where you could put that? And if, would it be a hardship moving the thing to somewhere? And obviously, right there, there's nowhere to get to 100 feet.
So, Ms. Labrie, you have a question or a comment? Come on down to the table and could you say your name and sign yourself in?
Audrey Labrie.
Thank you. Do you swear to tell the truth this evening?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm here this evening as a member of the Agricultural Commission. And I also, for full disclosure, I live on the corner of Royston Road North and Brooks Road, so we're just down the street from there. My family's been there for many years, and there's a couple situations where I think we're going to come across this more often. There were 2 or 3 large parcels of farmland that were family-owned back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. The parents died, the kids didn't want it. So we were here when this piece was sold, and the developer obviously wants to get as many houses on the lot as he can. So he went 200 feet, which is the minimum frontage, 200, 200, 200, all the way down, so he could get the most houses. And then there's another piece, I think, on the other end of Brooks Road or on River Street, where someone did the same thing. So I think we're going to see more requests for a variance for livestock housing within that 100-feet barrier. So the AgCom is working on looking at what we can do to help this process. Christy did reach out to me some time ago, and we've been going back and forth, as she said, between the town manager, and I've been in touch with Chad and Kayla and such. We don't want, my opinion as an AgCom member is, we don't want to tell people, just because someone cut this lot up into 200 feet wide pieces, you can't have livestock, considering everything that's going on. So I would just ask that you keep that in consideration when you make your decision. Chad and Kayla are kind of breaking ground on this process for these more narrow lots. But I expect that we'll see more as time goes on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Audrey.
Thank you.
So, I think we should definitely have some conditions or something.
I think, first of all, let's acknowledge the fact that it's a variance for the setback.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's a variance under the zoning law would be due to the size, shape, topography of the land. And as Ms. Labrie pointed out, the subdivision was carved out into 200-foot. It's not even a subdivision. The original farm was divided out into 200-foot
Right.
frontage land, which would make it impossible to put anything.
A structure 100
Not impossible.
Well,
You probably could towards the back.
towards the back, sure,
They wouldn't last very long.
true.
No. So,
But I'd be the only one that could put
Is
a
it
chicken coop
unrealistic?
on there.
Right, and especially since it tapers.
correct.
So size, shape, topography of the land is definitely, it's a unique property in the area as well, too.
So like technically, nobody in any of those 8-acre lots could own a chicken coop because they're all 200 feet.
Correct.
Well, they have to go through the same process.
Yeah, yeah.
It's all the
No,
same.
but I'm just, yeah, that's just, I mean,
Right. So for that reason, we could consider granting a variance based on those conditions. And like you said, any conditions, what conditions would we like to state?
I don't know if we can stipulate, look, like Eric said, we're a right to farm community. They're, I think maybe having them to the other side, to that other lot where there's no property there, moving them to that side of their lot, further away from,
that was the initial plan, is like, I have like a woodshed and I was gonna put it, but I just ran out of time this fall. but I was gonna put it like behind the woodshed, and it would be right on that property, right on that, the
Where's the
property line
woodshed?
of.
Where is the woodshed?
Is that all the way to the right
It's
side?
like, the woodshed's on, pretty much on their other property line. I don't even,
On
I don't even know.
241 property line?
Yes, yep. It's like you come up the driveway, and I was gonna put it like, the chicken coop would almost be hidden by the,
And
by
would
the
that
woodshed.
alleviate some of the noise, absorb some of the noise possibly?
Yeah, I guess she would have, that white fence would probably help.
Sure, I mean, sound's still gonna carry, especially like in the fall.
Yes.
You're
Yeah.
gonna hear early fall. But my only other concern would be, what happens with 241 down the road?
Well, because the guys that own 64, they own 241, and they put those other two houses in, they own that lot, and they said that, they asked me if I wanted to buy 241, because the guy that just built on that, there's another lot that they just finished a house on, or finishing a house on, that contractor was talking about buying 241.
Sure, but so as it stands, they wanna sell that. So if somebody buys that,
Yes, correct.
they might have a house with babies or something that they don't want woken up at 3 o'clock in the morning. So that's just a consideration. Like, I don't know if I would wanna put it on that property line like that, but if we can get, further away from her property line, that would be ideal. What's kinda in between that area? It looks like it's open.
So where that number is, where like there's a measurement written,
Yep.
that's like, it like drops off, like they had made like a road to go down, like down off a grade. So that whole
Oh,
up piece,
okay.
that whole top piece is raised, and then that all drops off.
Gotcha.
Fades away. So
Down
kinda
towards-
like that curve of the green there?
Correct, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all higher, and then as soon as you come off that curve, it's like somebody
So
had
what
like,
about at the edge of those trees? See where the shade is where you have the coop currently? To go a little bit further over, yeah, somewhere, a little bit more to the right, somewhere in there.
yeah,
What is that? Is that something feasible for you? Because I think that'll get you 100 feet from her property line,
yeah, I mean, I can measure it too and make sure it is, you know?
Yeah, that might be the good solution.
I mean, you want to be a good neighbor and you want to compromise and you want to still be able to do the self-sustaining stuff that you guys are doing, so I get it. They just got to be compromised to help everybody get there, and maybe nobody's happy, but maybe nobody's miserable also,
Oh, it's only 150 feet wide in the whole
Yeah.
back there. So go back to where's the 100 feet, Nicole?
Pretty much where you said.
Yeah.
Okay, right, so.
Would that be a possible
Yeah,
compromise?
yeah, but I was gonna move it for her in the fall, like I said, but I just ran out of time, and now it's all everything's cold, so.
And that would still, what did we say, 150, 160?
If it's 160 approximately, back there.
And that would put it over 200 feet from her house.
Oh, from her house, not the property
Yeah,
line.
from her house. And there's good trees there, and moving it back down with the trees and the shrubs might baffle a little bit more of the
Yeah.
sound.
And suppose we give the variance, we can't tell you how to put your coop or what to do with your coop necessarily, as far as direction or how you build it out of. But again, to be the best neighbor, I would do everything you can to deflect that noise that way, so it's, less irritation for your neighbor. And then again, have them fenced in somehow, so they're not traveling
Yeah,
too far, off your property.
Okay.
Is there any other discussion?
I have a question. How many chickens would be maximum that you would be trying to raise there?
like 20. The coop's only made for like, I think the coop's only like 15 to 20
Okay, so
chickens
that would
anyways.
be.
Yeah, we're not trying to go.
You're
not gonna
looking
build
at
additional
expanding.
No, no,
structures.
we get 6 eggs, a day, that's more than enough.
Yeah.
So,
You're not gonna build additional structures or anything?
No,
like
no,
that to
no,
deal
no.
with that. So that'll kind of limit you,
Mhm.
that
yeah,
size
we were
of
actually gonna get rid of them until all this crazy stuff happened, so,
Sure.
but,
So you said the coop is 6 by 8? So I think we should specify that instead of building a 10 by 20 or, a larger shed
Yeah,
too. I
right.
mean, just if it,
Yeah,
if
moves.
it breaks
It's
down
on-
or
it's
something
on-
happens
it's on
to it,
skids,
replace
so
it
I
with
can
another
I can
6
just
by 8
drag it
shed.
over. I'm just gonna drag it over there, and then
Yeah.
I bought like a carport thing. I was gonna make it, cover it in and make it look half decent, and then they'd have a big 20-foot run there and just keep them
Sure.
contained. So we try not to let them out in the summer either,
Yeah,
because
our
they'll,
garden too, so
yeah,
they-
they'll kill our garden too,
Right, they sure will.
so.
Alrighty, do we have enough information then?
Any
think so.
additional comments from, you?
Yeah,
Anything
Another,
else you wanna
is
add?
there any other comments from the,
Oh, I can just comment real quick. I don't want to have them think that I don't want them to have them, because it's not really an issue. Like I said, it's the noise and the traveling onto my property.
Sure, that's understood.
It's
That's
understandable.
the main thing, you know. As of December, they were digging under the white fence and coming back up and over. So that's just the thing, because, I mean, back in 2019, when we had our dog, we had to check to make sure, or take him out on a leash, because we didn't want him going after the birds, you know what I mean? Or, killing one of them, Because we do understand that, people have chickens, people want them, for various reasons, but just to have a little consideration of your neighbor and, be responsible enough to keep them on your own property.
okay,
That's fair.
alrighty, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, any other comments or concerns from the audience? Thank you. In that case, I'd like to entertain a motion to close the hearing so we can further deliberate and come up with a proposal. And I
All
have
right,
a
I will
motion.
make a motion to close the hearing.
I'll second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. All righty. Do we have any further discussion, or would someone like to propose a motion?
I think,
No, go ahead.
so I was just gonna say, we have the contingency that the coop, the closest wall to this neighbor is at the 100-foot line, you know what I mean, not the opposite wall, so it's at 100 feet. And that we don't, or they don't make it a bigger structure down the road. If they have to replace it, you do the same kind of footprint that you already have there, and that'll help keep your flock in a proper size, so.
Okay, good comments. Would we like to formalize that into a proposal? A motion?
Yeah, think of that.
And it's a 6 by 8.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you have the words, Eric?
I'm trying to think.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that we grant the variance for the coop to be at the 100-foot mark, and that any future existing coops must be of the same footprint and location.
For the following reasons? Size, shape.
So, for the size, shape, and topography hardship that is presented by the lot.
And 100 feet away from the property line of the neighbor to the left.
Correct, right.
From lot, whatever the lot is on the.
Yeah, lot number, let's see, what's her map and
202.
parcel? Map and parcel
Lot 202.
1-0-202.
100 foot from the property boundary of 202.
That was a long motion.
And as well as the chickens need to be contained within the lot,
Right.
correct? Yeah,
Contained
I think
within
we-
the lot.
yeah.
All righty, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
I will second that motion.
And do we have a vote on that? I'd like to call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 And the chair votes aye. Okay,
Excellent.
thank you. And we'll have the decision written and to be signed.
Yep.
And there's a appeal period. And then you have to file it with the Registry of Deeds. So it goes with that actually goes with the property variance does, so.
Right.
Thank you, and we look forward to hopefully seeing the movement and contained chickens so that we have at least some sort of a compromise and chickens staying on your side.
Do we have a future follow-up, like we've done in the past with other things,
Want to do 1 year?
like a year from now?
Yeah,
or
we could
something?
have a one-year follow-up just if we have any problems within a year so that we could revisit it without having to formalize another hearing or a variance, okay?
Pretty standard compliance thing
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
do often.
Yeah, we've been, yeah,
We'll just
it is a
put
good
it on
idea
our
to revisit
agenda
it.
to discuss it and make sure that everything's done the way it's said.
Right.
So, moving the coop, I know it's February, and it's but my backyard still has snow. I don't know
Yeah,
about
but-
yours. So I would, what's that?
They got a year.
Yeah, I suppose. But do it as soon as possible, as
Right.
soon as the land allows.
Right.
I think our board are in a somewhat different position where we try to negotiate the best for both parties and all the citizens of the town. So we're volunteers. We do the best we can with what we have. We have, you know, federal law, state law, and local law to go by and to fly with, so
Right.
we do the best with what we can to work out some agreements that is mutually acceptable. Everybody doesn't get the whole thing of what you need, but hopefully we get something that we can work with.
Right.
So thank you for coming tonight, and she'll have a packet for you in about 20 days from whenever we
Yes, yep, yeah, I'll give you a
sign
call.
it.
Yep,
Okay,
I'll give you a
thanks.
call and let you
Thank you.
know, and then you
Good
have to
luck.
report it.
Awesome, guys.
Good luck.
Farm on.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Oh, yeah, sure.
Alrighty. So it's being 7:43 now. Let's get to our other hearing, which is the hearing of Cindy Lou Fitch. And could I have a motion to reopen that hearing?
I'll make a motion
Thank
to
you.
reopen that
Do I have a
hearing.
second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Thank you. And
You want to read it?
I think
We already
we
did.
already read it in, so we just, because
did.
we opened it and closed it, and we're back here because we didn't have a
So you
quorum
don't have
that
to
night.
reread it then.
So we are good. So once again, I'm going to ask the board, because I didn't ask you last time, because not everyone was here. Does anyone have a conflict of interest in hearing this case? No? So we have all 5 of us here this evening. And could you sign in on the sheet and state your name for the record, please?
So much, I had an opportunity to sign in already, so.
Okay, thank
My
you.
name is Attorney Vinnie Pusateri. I represent Cindy Fitch. and
Okay,
She's at 6
thank
Island
you.
Road. Would be with us tonight. She's recovering from surgery.
Okay, thanks. Could you tell us about the plan, please?
So this is a property that this board has had an opportunity to see before. The current project, it's substantially scaled back. Current project is simply to remove the roof from the existing property and to build a second story on the structure. You'll hear on the second story, there'll be an additional deck that will be part of the project, and I'd be happy to get into more specifics about that. By way of some background, there was a fairly larger project that was planned for the property, and I think, I know I came to the realization when there was a site inspection with the board, and we realized exactly how close the septic tank was. I don't know if you remember the moment, but that's the moment that I remember saying, okay, we have to move the project in a different direction. So my client had taken the opportunity, she hired a contractor who's with us today. He worked with the building department, and the building department issued a permit. And we began working towards the construction of the, sometime after that, the building department asked my client to come in and wanted to withdraw the permit. There was some concern about the addition of a second story implicating a 50% rule in your zoning bylaw regarding non-conforming structures. And I think there's a little bit of a debate about the applicability of that rule, and I'd like to get into that. My presentation tonight would be really threefold. First, I'd like to discuss the fact that the appeal portion of the building commissioner's decision, I agree with some of his opinion, but I disagree with others. And the first part of that would be the ability to do this project as of right. And I think I'll take you through the bylaws and discuss that. Should the board fail to agree with me on that, I'm prepared to discuss a special permit being granted and the applicability or the non-applicability of the 50% rule. And if all else fails, I threw in a request for a variance. I have a lot that is extremely small. The topography is very difficult there. And the shapes, particularly as the current structures are situated in that shape where the current septic creates a hardship, and I'll be happy to go through those in more in detail. So first, if I could just draw our attention to 6.2B. Basically says that upon a determination by the building commissioner, the reconstruction, extension, or alteration of a nonconforming single or two-family residential structure shall not be considered an increase in the nonconforming nature of the structure and shall be permitted by right under the following circumstances.
Hold on.
So, if I can continue. The one that really is, there are several that actually can be implicated here. If we look at, made some notes, so if I can just take 1 second and refresh myself. If we look at item number 2, so it would be 6.2.3B, item 2. I can do a building if the reconstruction, extension, or alteration of the structure is located on a lot with insufficient area, which this lot has insufficient area, with all the current minimum setback requirements. Now, there is a deck that goes in towards the rear lot line, and that does go into the setback, but that deck has been there for well over 10 years. We have listing photographs of the property from that time period, and it clearly depicts the existence of that deck. And it's unclear to me exactly when the deck was built, but I do know that in 2016, this property was before the Conservation Commission, and I'm going to go into that because this building of this deck inside the footprint is another issue. In that deck was specifically discussed, and there was a discussion of a need for a building permit for the reconstruction of that deck. There's no building permit in your file. My understanding is the building commissioner affirms the issuance of the permit, and I think we can all agree that if we have a property that's in front of the Conservation Commission, that the building department, the Conservation Commission agent, all the folks in the town working together, the findings of the Conservation Commission directing the applicant at the time, a prior owner, to get a building permit before the property can be built. The property was built, the Conservation either reviewed, many eyes on the project. I would have to imagine a conservation agent and the building department reviewed the project, and the deck has been there since then. So my respectful position is item number 2 is we are within the setbacks because we have a permitted construction. Interestingly enough, item number 3 allows for the reconstruction, extension, or alteration of a structure located on a lot with insufficient frontage, which this lot has insufficient frontage, with all current minimum setback requirements. Same argument there. Item number 4, reconstruction, extension, or alteration of a structure that encroaches upon one or more of the required setback areas, but complies with all other current minimum setback requirements. So in this particular case, I would definitely fall within that exception, even if you disagree with me about the building permit and the prior construction of the deck. But finally, and I think really it's much more square, is number 5. Again, just to recap the general rule, for a single or two-family structure, it's not considered an increase of a nonconforming nature of the structure, and it shall be permitted by right if the reconstruction, extension, or alteration of the structure occurs within the existing footprint of a nonconforming structure. So if you would tell me that the structure is nonconforming because it's not on a lot of sufficient size, if you would tell me that the structure is nonconforming because the deck does go out and towards the backyard and towards the side setback, my suggestion is I fit squarely within this because all I'm doing on this property is I'm taking a single-story house and I'm putting on a second floor. My brother, Attorney Glennie, wrote a letter about this particular point, and one of his objections was that the deck that's being proposed, and I have that, I thought I saw the chair, you had the drawing up there. there's two drawings on graph paper that's in the application, so it's the last 2 pages of the application for the special permit, but I think the drawing is informative. It basically shows the current existence of the first floor and then the second floor coming up, and you'll see this deck coming out on the second story. And if we took a look to the final page on the application, we can see the deck coming out and still standing above the current deck. My brother's suggestion is that that deck doesn't exist. It's not with, quote-unquote, within the footprint. I had an opportunity to go through the conservation notes, and I would give you a copy if you felt that it would be helpful. February. This is the February one. A gentleman's name is John DeVito, was at 6 Island Road, was before the Conservation Commission. And they were discussing the deck. He started building a deck within the 30 feet of the water and within the 50 foot of the no disturb zone. It's the Conservation Commission. The deck was being built is 12 feet and is larger than the original deck, which acknowledges that there was some other deck there prior to this one, but this one was larger. The commission had concerns that the deck was closer to the water. Mr. DeVito wants to sell his home, and he did. He sold it to my client. His realtor advised that he needed to rebuild the deck for safety purposes. It is one of the primary entrances to the property. If you had a chance to go to the property, it's that deck closest to the... The only issue is the sonotubes. The footings in the deck are not complete. Agent Kuntz recommended an RDA. Mr. DeVito asked if he can continue the work because the entrance to the house is not safe. There was a motion made, and the vote was unanimously approved to allow Agent Kuntz to sign the building permit. No work can continue until the building permit is issued. Agent Kuntz will email Mr. DeVito the RDA form. The matter then came back before the Conservation Commission. I'm sorry, that was the meeting of April 25th. And I have a copy of it if it would help.
Yeah, please.
And what year was that meeting? April 25th?
What was it?
So April 25th.
April 25th, 2016.
I have August 25th, 2016.
Oh, I'm sorry.
August 25th, 2016.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Did you have this?
He doesn't, I offered mine to him, he doesn't. Here, you can have mine.
Got that? Okay. Thank you, Attorney Glenn. 6 Island Road was back, looks like October of 20th of 2016. Just acknowledging the project entails the reconstruction of a pre-existing deck from 32 8 feet to 32 12 feet. So then it gives us the dimensions of the prior deck that existed there, and gives us the dimensions of the current deck that's currently there. This is the deck that's on the first floor, and it's relevant because, and this is the Conservation Commission of October 20th, 2016.
You have enough? Here, I don't know. You can give it to them.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So this is the 7:05 hearing of the commission that night. So So this deck has been there and has been permitted and approved by at least conservation. I can't show you a building permit. There's been other documents in our file. The Title V, when my client bought the property, was misplaced. It was not in the building file. So there's some issue there, but clearly this was a project that was approved by the town. And therefore, I think the appeal of the building commissioner's decision should be successful. I think this board could vote to overturn the building commissioner's decision because he has the authority to approve this simply as of right. What happened was he did approve it, and he was confronted by the abutters, and their objection related to the 50% rule that is in the prior section of the zoning code. And when I look at this rule, and I brought an extra copy for everybody, if it would be helpful, 623A. I see this as, and this is where I would agree with the building commissioner. And I am concerned that I think I've seen this board apply this rule just on a different occasion in a way that I was respectfully would suggest that I do disagree with, and I explain that to you. The rule sets out a general, this provision of the zoning ordinance, it provides that any lawful pre-existing nonconforming structure or building, and that noun is important to my interpretation, or uses, may be reconstructed, extended, or altered, provided that such alteration or extension does not create any new nonconformity, or further provided that no such reconstruction, extension, or alteration shall be permitted unless the Zoning Board of Appeals determines by special permit that the reconstruction, extension, or alteration shall not be substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming use or structure. So that sets out our general rule on how to deal with the issuing of special permits when we're faced with non-conforming structures. The provision continues. It says that no special permit is needed for the reconstruction, extension, or alteration no special permit is needed if the reconstruction, extension, or alteration is to be a non-conforming single or two-family dwelling, and that said reconstruction, extension, or alteration does not increase the non-conforming nature of the dwelling. I think the building commissioner was looking at that rule when he issued the building permit originally for this reduced project. The next sentence, I think, creates an issue. The next sentence says, in addition, no such building shall be added, enlarged, or constructed to an extent greater than 50% of the area at the time of the adoption of this bylaw or such amendment or accepted as provided for, and it provides a section that doesn't exist in the bylaw. I've looked for it, and we haven't been able to find that reference section there. I don't think that's material to us tonight. When I look at that, I see that the building commissioner does not have to send people who are altering a two-family dwelling or a single-family dwelling if the nonconformity is not being increased. However, if he's going to do that within his own office, he can't do that with buildings that exceed 50%. When he was presented with this, he did pull back the building permit. We wanted to work with him, so we complied with all of those things, and filed, at his request, an application to come here. My brothers pointed out that this 50% rule will limit this board in issuing a special permit for the construction of a second story on a house. I respectfully suggest that it doesn't. There's nothing in that sentence that suggests to me that it qualifies the general rule. It just qualifies the exception, which is the building commissioner's doing what he's doing in his own office. And I believe that to be the case because of the structure of the sentence. The general rule talks about structures and/or buildings. The exception talks about single families and two families. The 50% rule is qualifying the word "no such building." It doesn't talk about structures. It doesn't talk about other types of things. And it's really limited to a single family or a two-family. Second of all, it doesn't make sense that this board's confined in providing special permit conditions. No house in the town that's not conforming could ever construct a second story within the footprint, which my earlier argument is I can do by a matter of right. So the special permit granting authority should be able to expand a non-conforming structure and increase its area, provided that you make the special permit findings and you make a determination that it's not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. And I think you could do that here. I think if we look at this project, you have a property that's located right on the water. The construction and the rehabilitation of this property is going to improve. It would be great if we could pull up that photo. Thank you for being so technologically savvy, because
For now.
I wouldn't be able to figure out that. So that's the photo on the tax card. My client's property, when you look at the property from the street and you walk up, the driveway is down, and it's an impervious area that's right up by the water. That creates a runoff situation where water doesn't have a chance to even infiltrate into the ground before it runs into the lake. That's a significant issue, not only to this property, but also throughout all of the properties on the lake. If you look at the property as you go up to the property, if you look at that photo, it's hard to see it. There is a great depression that allows you to have access to the basement. The design of the property is that basement is the front door of the property. That provides livable, usable space in the basement, but also creates a tremendous water problem. There's lots of flooding. So while there's livable or usable space there, it certainly isn't there when it's raining because there's a flooding issue. The construction project is also going to allow us to do other improvements that's going to protect the neighborhood, which is the lake, providing for downspouts that are going to discharge into the ground, that will prevent infiltration of water that's running along the ground from the roof into the lake. So it's actually, I'm suggesting, I think, that it's not more detrimental to the neighborhood, but it's actually going to be a substantial benefit. The abutter tonight is going to complain that it's going to interfere with his view. My client's property has been in front of the Conservation Commission because of a confusion and maybe a misjudgment, but not any intentional act, for cutting down a line of trees in between her property and the gentleman, the abutter's property next door to her. That line of trees has to be replaced. That is what is going to cut off the gentleman's view, not the construction of the second story. The construction of the second story is in a line of sight that is not directly towards, from the gentleman's house to the property. And if we have an inspection, we could certainly see that more clearly. The gentleman also has the benefit of direct access through somewhat of a panhandle all the way down to the water. So he has that ability to use that area all the way there, and he could use that for his recreation and for his view. So it's not an accurate representation, or I would reject the representation, I should say, that it's going to interfere with his view. In fact, the single story and the roof line that's already there is at least 70% of what's going to be already existing, because the roof line is peaked and goes up. So there's no detriment to the neighborhood. In fact, that there's going to be an improvement to any runoff that's coming there. If we remember from the site visit, which seems to be a year ago, the area right by the bridge is an area of significant runoff, which really does come across the roof, and it comes across the driveway. And that, if we look at that, and I think maybe even the chair remembers, the erosion that's going on there, it's not going to be alleviated completely, but it's going to be decreased significantly with this project. So, so that would be that. If I go into the next component of my argument, it's going to be a variance, and I would be happy to go through the soil, the topography, the shape, and the size of the lot, the structure, where it sits in connection with where the septics are. It provides very little opportunity to do any type of renovation at that property. It is without question, a challenged lot because of its size. The topography on the lot, particularly with my client, is having a second knee surgery. She's recovering from that. She wants to house her parents in, and that's the purpose of the renovation. The topography is quite substantially uneven, even more so than any other lot in the area. And I had an old document in the file that demonstrates the elevation.
How big is that lot, just to refresh me?
Third of an acre.
Third of an acre. What's the distance from front to back? Oh, thank you.
I have another drawing.
She has this one.
Point
Oh,
two five eight, 0.25 acres total.
A quarter of an acre, I was wrong. Thank you.
This lot, I can give you the statistics on this lot too, if you don't mind. I have another drawing from Mr. Pura. But the lot square footage is, it says 10,007. I think we've debated that number. I think it depends on the lake, to tell you the truth. Lot frontage is 137. The front yard is set back by 34 feet.
What
The
was
minimum rear setback is 20.1 feet onto the house. And to the deck, which is that rear deck, not the front deck that's going to overhang the new construction, is 11.4 feet. And then the rear setback, the side setback is currently 30 feet. And I have a drawing that depicts that, and I actually could only make an 11 by, so I blew up the caption so that we could all read that. I'm happy to hand that to you.
Yep.
That's 115 feet on the outside.
Take your,
From that to the pin is 100 and something
Oh.
things.
right.
And then it's 80 feet wide and 145 feet down to that longer piece down there.
And I do have a question, if you may. How far is the rear setback from the edge of the deck to the property
Edge of the
line?
deck, yeah.
So, can we just clarify, waterfront roads, are we talking the front of the lot is facing the
Island.
road,
Yes,
and the rear setback is facing that piece of pie on the side? Even though the front of the house faces the lake in the new direction, the real fronting would be to the road?
To the road.
Is that what we're talking about?
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
And the little dip where it goes into the basement, that's gonna go away, and that's gonna be the new front door.
Wait,
Yeah.
oh,
Is there any of those left?
oh. So technically, not technically, but,
So we're talking about this area, this front door right
no,
here,
that faces the road.
that this is going to face Island Road, yes.
Okay.
So,
And how many feet setback is that?
34, I think you said?
from the road to the front of the structure,
Yes.
is 34 feet. Yeah, and this legend, Madam Chair, this legend,
There we
I
go.
think would take you through
Provided,
that.
required, provided, gotcha. Need 20, have 34, need 10, have 32. Rear, the 20,
So I think the answer to
They
your
only have
question was
11.4.
11.4
yeah, that deck,
Yeah.
to the deck, yeah.
yeah.
So the thing that is not on here, you have all the setbacks. The total height of the building, because I haven't seen that.
No, I specifically asked that last time.
Right.
The current structure height,
No, then
No,
proposed
the
addition.
proposed height,
Proposed.
it's intended to be 34 and a half feet. There was a prior engineered drawing that laid that out for me, and I would certainly defer to the gentleman on the construction as to the plan, but the plan is to remove the roof and build the same height of the second floor. And if I was to,
I think we didn't know what was 34 feet from
We were
what.
talking about from the ground level or from the?
Right, we didn't know from what,
the-
that was
the
obscure.
Push-out thing. So maybe that needs to be clarified.
and I don't have multiple copies of this, and I don't know, I was actually looking at it saying I should make a copy of this, but I have Mass Architect's engineered drawing that demonstrated that the height of the property would be 34 feet and 1/2 inches, and that prior design left in place the entire pitch of the roof. So it actually has to be less than that, mathematically speaking, and I don't have an exact dimension.
And I understand what
Do
you're
you have a
saying, where do you
dimension that
measure
you
it from
are aware of?
with the
Yeah,
very,
where we
where
were
the,
coming from.
The structure,
changes in the ground.
structure is 24 feet wide, which
Sir?
if you put a
Could you come down and
Yeah.
say your name for the, thank you. Thanks, and have a seat.
Hi.
There you go, thanks. And you need to sign in too, please.
All right.
Thank you.
My name is Richard Pleva. I've done work on numerous houses on Blueberry Island, including putting a second story on an existing structure 2 doors down from their 55 Island Road. And so basically, this looks like it's a 6.5 pitch roof on it, so it wouldn't go over 34.5 feet. So, I don't know what the exact question is, but.
Okay. My question, and I don't know if my question is the same as their question. When we originally did a site visit, the front door was below ground level. So are we talking about 34 feet from the pitch down below ground level? Or I heard that you're regrading it to be level with the,
Side or backyard,
Yeah, the
like,
side
so
or
we don't know where
backyard.
it's coming from, so
Yeah,
it's 34 feet.
In order to alleviate the water problem that she has basically a trough that goes into her basement.
Right.
That needs to be regraded, everything,
Has to be level.
brought back up to level, and that way water can pitch off of the land, and the
okay,
house.
so you're telling me that 34 feet is from the top,
The sill.
the sill?
From the sill.
I'm sorry, it's a
A
foot and a half below the sill. And if my memory serves me correct, and sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't, the architectural rendering there that I just supplied you shows a second story being built on the peak, with the peak being left there. And the drawings that you have for the gentleman, he's gonna take that roof off and build a proper second story with a floor, and then put the peak on from there. So that's gonna save quite a bit of height. So I can't imagine coming close to that. The second thing about the engineer drawing was that my understanding, when that came to, was there was kind of a generalized average of the grade,
Right,
the finished grade, that is, because the back of the property goes up, and the front of the property to the lake goes down, and that topography is difficult. It's not very steep, but it does create a little bit of a challenge if you have some mobility issues. As members look at that, I would just say it again, the peak of that's an old rendering of a prior project that has been abandoned. But if we look at the peak on that, that's the existing peak being left, and then a second story being built above that. This peak is going to be taken off, and then the second story will be built. And I would be more than happy for a condition of any special permit or any determination of this board that it would be, the height would be limited.
So what is the current height right now from that
it's
rough?
one story.
What's that?
It's just one story, so.
Yeah,
it's-
but I think one of the things I was trying to figure out last
Oh, I
time is
see.
what the difference is from right now to what the proposed plan is. So we could kind of have some, and we wanted to see that at the
By
site.
adding on, okay, I think I get your question. The peak of the existing roof
Yes,
to the peak of the new roof,
yes.
what's the difference between those two
It
heights?
would be 8.5 feet. Because you have to have a floor joist
Correct,
top of the existing system,
right,
and you have a 7-foot ceiling height, which is required.
right.
Right.
That's it.
But the peak of the roof,
It would remain the same as it is right now, a 6.5
Travels
pitch.
up 8.5 feet is what you're saying, yeah.
That's it.
So, okay, because that's what we were trying to gauge, to see how.
Yeah, so, that's
Right.
it.
Because the roof is going to be, I just want to be clear, because my representation has been, they're taking the roof off. You're putting a proper kind of second story on there,
Correct.
and then that same pitch is going to go on. to the
Correct.
roof. Okay.
That's it.
I
My
can't,
question, in this area, what is permitted?
I'm looking, I'm trying to.
Okay, it's right around 34.
Yeah,
I believe it's
35.
35.
35 feet is the.
35 feet? So it's 35 feet.
Yeah.
It is 35 feet, and I don't know if that includes the chimney or not. Because if it's 34 and something, you got a 3'8" chimney. It's a structure, it's the same as those cement berms around swimming pools, it's part of the structure, so
What's the chimney
it
at?
looks like 3.8, 3.
Is that
3.8 feet.
accurate, or is that just an old rendering of something else? What's,
That's on a project that has been abandoned, but I was using that to show you, if I left the roof on, that 6-foot pitch or so, and then I put a second story on that, and I put a brand-new roof on top of that, I'm still under 34. and-
understood, but we're talking about the chimney, and the
Now the-
chimney's gonna be up a little bit.
Yeah, the chimney will be higher. The old rendition showed a chimney to be 3 feet 8 inches above the old proposed.
Would put it over.
And my suggestion would be that, that would not put us over. And I'm just gonna try to do math real quick, live without a net, because I don't have the current height for you. But my expectation on the height is that I have about 2 feet from the ground to the sill. I have a current first floor that has 8 feet in height. Yes?
Correct.
I have a second floor that will be 8 feet in height, and I have a 6-foot pitched roof that's going to go on top of that. So 16 plus the 6 is going to be 22, plus the 2 feet from the grade to the sill,
28 feet
going to be 24. Going to be
on
24.
the 2 feet.
Yeah, and maybe I'll add a couple feet for a chimney. If the board wanted to make a finding and limit the height to, below 34 feet or something along those lines, I have a high degree of confidence I'm well within the tolerance there. Even if I was wrong on the height from the sill, the elevation to the sill,
Still,
I still would be
Well
well within the
Correct.
permissible guidelines. of the 35 feet. So,
You had mentioned that back deck, going back to that back deck, and the minutes that were on there. Did you say that you asked the town that you asked for the permit for that particular deck, and that there is no existing permit found for that deck?
I didn't specifically ask for it. My understanding from speaking with my client is that there's no permit that we can find about the deck. And when we talk about it, she also had indicated that documents may have been misplaced because there was a Title V right around that was done when she bought the property, which has to be done.
Sure.
And she was unable to locate that in the town. She went back to the company and was able to recreate that document at the time. So there was, that's
I do
what I'm
believe
being
there
told.
is a permit for the deck in the building file
There is?
downstairs. I believe so, yes.
Okay.
I'd be more than happy to go pull it if you'd like.
It'd be nice just to have it with all this stuff, so we can
Sure.
reference it when we
Yeah.
want to.
I can go grab it.
So, no changes to the setbacks of the current decks that are there?
No.
The construction would be simply
vertical.
add,
A second floor,
Okay.
that's it.
Add the second floor.
That's it.
We'll do whatever we can to mitigate any impact on our neighbors. I think even when we were going through the Conservation Commission, the replacement of the trees, we tried to identify placement of trees strategically to keep and maximize the view for the neighbor. But at the same time, we're also under an order from Conservation to replace trees. There was a photo that I had seen that showed prior to my client taking these trees down, I'm going to say 2 or 3 years ago, there was a line of trees in between the two properties. And there's not a big space.
That was up on the hill. Up on the hill
Correct, on
behind,
the-
or on the
on
side,
the-
however you look
on
at
the
it.
north side of the
Up on the
property.
hill towards the property.
Yeah.
I got it.
I'm happy to dig that photo out just to confirm that, but that's, it becomes a factual issue. I have a photograph of that
You can
obstruction to the gentleman's
See it on
view.
the property card, too. The trees would be in,
Right.
so we're talking about the
Up on
trees
that,
that,
kind of a-
yeah,
Slopes up, yeah.
that would be in the back.
Right.
Everything's the back,
So,
opposite lakeside.
So you're looking to put second floor on the entirety of the first floor, so up to 100% of current, without any further overhangs.
Right.
Eaves, things like that are gonna expand, that would expand beyond that.
so the only overhang, and we just spoke about this before the hearing, on that back property line where we come right up to the setback, we could cut the eave off of the roof. But currently, there exists large overhanging eaves, so we would be just taking that roof and just moving it up. So it'll be exactly what's there, same roof, same slight overhangs on those eaves. If that becomes a concern for the board, a gentleman has advised me from a construction perspective that he can take that rear eave off. I would ask for us to be able to leave it the same. I would like to make sure that any drainage off of that roof is going to go and be filtrated according to
And that's
our
towards
code.
that back deck.
Yeah.
Sorry, sir?
And
That's
the
towards that
roadside.
back deck.
Yeah, that's towards that back deck. It doesn't go over that back deck, though, because the back deck would be, if you're running up the back deck, you're going to get wet if it's raining.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. It would be just a duplicate there, and if the board is concerned, and that does somewhat overhang that.
So if we do the math, though, on the property card, it's listed as the basement area is 768 square feet, the finished area is 1152 square feet, putting the whole, including the decks and everything, it's 23 4 square feet. 50% of the gross area would be about 1,000 square feet.
Okay.
13, well,
11.5.
yeah,
Yeah.
11.5. What is the footprint of the house again?
So the footprint of the house is 960 square feet, plus or minus, if you will. It's a 40 by 24 structure. And so, to your point, that's another issue on the 50%. And I wasn't 100% clear on the calculation of this area. I kind of was focused a little bit more on my argument that the 50% rule doesn't apply when you're granting a special permit. I mean, that's just my argument. But if we were to look at that, and I've run these numbers, I'm kind of sick of running the numbers on this building. I've been doing it for a year or so. Calculating it your way, the 50% rule is not applicable. It's not implicated, because we're going to put on, and I got to find her application, because the number, she wrote the number down with the commissioner on the application.
It's on the application.
Yeah. So her final, the current square footage was identified as 976 by the building commissioner, and that was just the first floor, just the area within inside that first floor. And then if we look at the building permit application, my client wrote finished square footage height 1,952. Calculating it in the way that you've calculated it, and I had heard, I think it was Allison was the prior person I had been working with, she told me you include the decks. Others folks have said you don't include the decks, so I wasn't 100% clear exactly whether we're including them or not. But one of the things that struck me was I have finished rooms in the basement here as well, and I have an additional 790 square feet based upon my architectural drawings that I have. Basically, the entire basement except for about 168 square feet where the mechanical room and the laundry room is. Would be able to argue you could include that. However, including the decks, including the square footage is calculated on the tax card, I don't know if that 50% rule is applicable, is implicated or would prevent us from getting to putting on a second story.
And if I may, I pulled the building department file, and Stephanie DeVito was sent a letter in August 10th of 2016, construction of a deck without a permit and in violation of zoning. And then in September 26th of 2016, she pulled a permit to remove the old deck and replace deck 32 by 12 across the front of the home. I cannot find a permit for the side deck in the file. There's no permit for the deck going down the side.
We can't find a permit.
Nope, there's no permit.
The conservation did approve it, and they said no work to be done without a permit. And someone on the Conservation Commission said,
The side deck should, the rear, whatever it is, the one without the permit should have had a variance at that point too.
Correct.
Because at that point, it should have been, it would have not have met the setbacks. The zoning overlay did not come into.
may
I wonder if there was a conversation with the conservation, but not a conversation with the zoning board.
Correct. The zoning and the conservation were not.
if I may, on that point, the part of the deck that is
West,
left, towards the water,
okay.
except for that part that lines up with the part that has pre-existed in the back of the house, okay? Is the part that I'm talking about as far as the footprint goes. That is all well within the setback requirements. And I had a drawing on that that depicted that. I'd be happy to share that with you if I could put my hands on it.
Are you saying that the deck that is in line with the perimeter of the house is within the setback? Is he saying
That
this-
is within the
This part
setback.
has the permit, this part does not have the
So we're
permit.
talking this line,
Yep,
not
that's
this line?
correct.
Okay.
but this is too close to the, this is like 11 feet.
But isn't that the same thing?
So if I may, in
Well,
looking at
no,
the
I think 30
supporting
feet is here.
documentation,
Okay, that's what I was saying. I'm sorry, what was that?
in looking at the supporting documentation, when the building permit was pulled to put the deck on, remove old deck and replace deck size 32 by 12 across the front of the house, they did do a drawing,
Old line.
and I can pass this around. They did do a drawing depicting that there was an old deck there already.
Can I see that, please?
I think this was,
Right, that was my question.
Because this is over 24 feet wide, so
Oh.
this would be included in the
Okay.
32 by...
so they didn't, they got a permit to do that without a zoning variance, and that would have been too close back then. So the building commissioner messed up.
Can I can call your attention, in the packet is this drawing here, and it clearly defines by the engineer where the setback is. You can see that the part of the deck that I'm concerned about, the footprint part, is well within the setback, okay?
Hold on. The.
Could you come?
Yeah, could you step up here, please? This is 24 by 32. We're talking about this deck which was replaced.
Yeah.
Part of this deck to reach the 32 would be not meeting the setback,
That's correct. This whole area is
not within the setback.
not within the setback.
But this was permitted by this 12 by 32, so this is 24, so this extra.
Yeah.
The-
And if there's an application and there's no denial letter, or referral letter to the zoning board for an appeal, and then the deck is built, and I'm in front of the Conservation Commission on at least 2 occasions that I found it is odd. All I can tell you is that's what it is.
There's no denial, but there's no approval also.
Yeah.
There's
no-
nothing.
Right, there's nothing.
There's nothing.
There's nothing, actually, there is one thing. There's a deck.
Sure.
There's a deck.
There's an orange card somewhere floating around here.
So this is what
Yeah.
Nicole had brought up. So this was part of the building permit.
Yep.
So this was the building permit packet, in which was approved for the 32 by 12.
Sure, yep.
Which they acknowledge on there that this is the old deck.
August 10th, 2016.
Oh.
And that was,
They acknowledge, meaning when they
Okay, so
issued the
you-
building
oh,
permit.
Gotcha. Okay, so
When they
you
issued the building
can,
permit, they acknowledged,
being pre-existing non-conforming yourself at the lake, when I got a permit to add on to my house within 7 foot of my border, they said I can keep on going that 7 foot, the whole
Just
thing in the
chop it.
future if I want to. So they are already pre-existing
They already-
non-conforming in that area. They can't go farther than that thing, but they can go out to that thing.
That's interesting.
I get it.
That makes sense.
Sadly, or did I explain that so you get it?
Yeah, no, that made good sense.
After the fact, that lets the prior owners.
So,
Of
just
that.
so the public can hear what I just said. On that print, it shows the little skinny deck that's 6 foot wide on the other side. So with the permit application, you can go out to that 6 foot without a variance, because you're not increasing the nonconformity of that setback.
Right.
For a pre-existing nonconforming lot that is already
You'd have to-
11 feet
Right.
from the boundary, you can go to 11 feet, you can't go to 11 and a half.
You can't encroach further,
You can't encroach further.
but you can
go
follow
out
the
to
line.
that-
Right,
You can go out to that point of the pre-existing non-conforming.
right.
So, and then, I think what I've seen, that this orange card does exist. Sometime after conservation hauled the prior owner in for doing whatever he wanted to do with his deck. They had the 2 meetings, and then it is signed by the commissioner. It's a building permit for that deck. It says call when done, or something like that? Call when done. So there is there's something. Maybe
Okay.
there's forgiveness, maybe it's not a permit, but
I don't
it's.
think that particular permit needed a variance based on
What we just saw.
the picture, what I just saw.
Right.
So,
It gets, I mean, you're right, every single lot out here at the lake is complicated. Every single one has its own nuances and, you know, where's the lake, and where's the lake, and where's the boundary, and where's the road, and where's the height, and every single one is unique, and we've spent a lot of time going over permits for particular properties on the lake. Can we go back to the 50%? And I've been on zoning for a long time in town and talked through a lot of permits about the 50%. This board has traditionally considered the entire square footage, the first floor, the second floor, the basement, the decks, if it's livable basement, when calculating the square footage. We've done that in Sandy Heights, we've done that in downtown on Main Street, we've done it elsewhere. One other thing that we haven't talked about too is in some part of the Winton zoning bylaws, it's the percentage of the coverage of the lot. But since it's not going out and strictly out, we don't have to do that math tonight, thankfully. But,
Originally it was.
Yes, so originally coverage was the primary issue
because
in
there
this
was a garage
case.
on the backside.
Yes, correct.
Exactly.
And more decks off of it, too. More.
And more decks,
balconies.
exactly. So the decks have been wiped, the garage has been wiped, the footprint remains, the front door is street side, there's still some outstanding conservation issues on this property, as I understand it. Tree planting,
Yeah, there is an enforcement order in which they're working on right now.
they are working on
Yeah,
it.
they
right?
started working on it because of the nice weather, so they are doing some grading of the property and everything, and relocating the driveway from the, closer to the water where it should be, over closer to the neighbor.
Okay,
So they have been doing some site work, and conservation has been out there looking at it, talking to the individual doing the site work.
okay,
Mm-hmm.
alrighty.
We,
Do
yeah.
we have any more questions for the applicant's representative this evening, or the builder? Thank you.
Being respectful of your time, I would reserve any further comment on the variance and just allow us to proceed with the other two issues I think we've already discussed, which is the by right and then the special permit, if that's okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
sure. In this case, I think we have an abutter with some major concerns, and our attorney would like to come and represent him. So could you please raise your hand and swear to tell the truth? Swear to tell the truth. Thank you. And did you sign in already?
Good.
Thank you.
Keith Glennie, I represent Mr. McCauley, who is the abutter that you see on your assessor's map that wraps around the applicant's parcel. Boy, I'm not even sure where to begin. Any analysis that you're going to do on this property has to first start with the underlying bylaw, and that is the Lake Menominee Overlay District, zoning district that we're talking about. And that was specifically instituted by the town to give more leeway to homeowners because of the various parcels of land unique to that district. The purpose of that bylaw is very straightforward. It says it right in it. The purpose of the Lake Menominee Overlay District is to allow owners reasonable use of their properties without detriment to abutters and the general community. It's not just the neighborhood. It specifically says abutters. So your decisions have to be based upon the impact of a single abutter, okay? That being Mr. McCauley. And I'm a bit, I guess, I don't know if chagrined is the word. During this hearing, we've been scribbling down a lot of numbers, doing a lot of additions, and I'm sitting here going, I have no idea what's being built, because what's being said is much different than what I'm seeing on the application. First of all, I don't see any heights included in the plans. I don't see any stamped plans. I see a drawing done on graph paper. I don't know who did them. It doesn't show any of the heights. I don't know where these heights are coming from. I would suggest to you that the 35 feet is from a median ground level. I don't know where they're getting the median ground level for this site. In the packet that I had sent to the board, there is a picture right at the very end. That picture shows what this site used to look like when it was in 2016, when it was up for sale, okay? Where are they taking the median ground level from? No one's told me that, I don't know. On the site visit that was done for the previous application that they had, we saw the front door. You had to rappel to get into that front door. And now they're complaining that they have all sorts of water issues. I'm sure they do, because they filled in all around that house. They have changed the topography of that lot. You can't use the filled-in area as the median ground level. It's as the house was first made. There have been no permits, no authority, nothing to allow that fill to be brought in. Okay? It's also important to note, Mr. McCauley's house, the abutter, was built in 1974. This house was built, the applicant's house, was built in 1975. It was built with a common purpose. It was built as a plan in the neighborhood, not to block the view of the abutter. That's why this house was built the way it was built. It's really a two-story house. They just sat it into the ground, and it was done as part of a common plan. It's the only thing that makes sense, okay? Going to the assertion that approval is not required. This is not a pre-existing non-conforming lot. Now, there's been some discussion about building permits and decks and whether building permits were issued for decks that don't meet zoning. The fact that a building permit may have allowed for a deck to go somewhere where it shouldn't have doesn't make it pre-existing non-conforming. The fact that the building permit was issued doesn't mean it still didn't have to comply with zoning, right? It means a mistake was made, but it's still not pre-existing non-conforming. So any part of that footprint that is encroaching, it can't be considered as part of this project. Even if one were to concede that it's pre-existing non-conforming, your bylaw specifically prevent this process from taking place. Let's go to 6.2.3 of your bylaws. Halfway down on the right hand, you're going to see the word no. That's where we're going to start. No special permit is needed if the reconstruction, extension, or alteration is to be a non-conforming single or two-family dwelling, and said reconstruction, extension, or alteration does not increase the non-conforming nature of the dwelling, okay? Part B defines what that means. You have to read Part B in conjunction with Part A. Otherwise, Part A is superfluous. It doesn't mean anything, right? What Part B does is it defines what is not an increase. Then Part A goes on to say, in addition, no such building shall be added to, enlarged, or reconstructed to an extent greater than 50% of its area at the time of the adoption of this bylaw or such amendment, except provided in section 4.7.2M, which has to do with your plan development, so it's not relevant to this discussion. If it's over 50% of an increase, you can't issue a special permit for it. Your bylaws forbid it, right? When I look at the application that was made, and again, maybe I'm just dense, I look at the building permit application, I look at the current square footage, it doesn't say first floor, it doesn't say second floor, it doesn't say really what it is at all, but it says 976 square feet. And then it says finished square feet, 1,952. Well, my fingers tell me that that is more than 50%. Again, we've heard things tonight saying, oh no, those aren't the numbers. Okay? Then where do we see the numbers in the application? Where is the square footage that they're applying for? Because I don't see it. Where is the height of the structure? I don't see it in the application. If I can't see it in the application, how can my client go to an appraiser and say, hey, look, this is what's going to happen to your view. This is what's going to happen to your sunlight, and then I can give this board the evidence to show how that's going to be detrimental to the value of his land. I can't do it. Right? This application is lacking, to say the least. Because of the 50% rule, which clearly applies in this case, the plain reading of your bylaws make that clear, a variance is required. A variance is not something that is supposed to be given out like candy. It's very clear that they're to be granted sparingly. The case law is very clear on that. There's 3 criteria that have to be met for a variance. Soil conditions, shape, or topography is number 1. The size of a lot does not count for shape or topography. So the fact that it's a small lot doesn't matter. That's not what the court or 40 talks about, Section 40. It also has to be specific to this lot and not general to the district that the lot sits in. Many, if not most of the lots in this district have the same problem. How do we know that? Because you created a specific bylaw to address it. There's nothing atypical about this lot that's not typical of any of the other lots in this zoning district. You also, number 2 is there has to be a literal enforcement of the provisions would involve a substantial hardship. It's not clear to me what the hardship is. Putting a second floor in your house is not a hardship that the law would recognize. She wants a bigger house. That's not a hardship that the law recognizes. Right? You also have to be able to conclude that there's not going to be a detriment to the abutter. We walked the property during one of the prior applications. You saw how the property sits. You see that if this project goes forward, it's going to impact not just the view of Mr. McCauley, but the sunlight of Mr. McCauley. It's going to prevent him from putting up solar panels on his house. It's going to prevent him from putting up skylights in his house. Right? That was clear from the walkthrough. So for all of these reasons, this is not something that holds itself up to a variance. She doesn't meet the requirements that would be needed for you to grant a variance. They are not able to do it as a matter of right. They are not able to get a special permit for it, and a variance is something that is much more stringent, can't be granted lightly, and has to meet those 3 requirements. It simply doesn't meet those requirements.
brief rebuttal.
Looking at hardships also. And our zoning law.
May I have a brief rebuttal, or are you? Sorry.
1 second, does our board have any comments or questions for Attorney Glennie?
No.
And I think, did you also want to make a comment? And then we'll get back to you.
Thank you so much.
Shall we recognize Ms. McCauley? Could you please raise your hand and state your name
Ryan McCauley,
and swear that you will tell the truth this evening?
I swear, yeah.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to maybe clarify some things on the decks. I mean, I lived there, I saw the whole project go on. If you go back, could you go back to that one photo there?
Which one do you want? Attorney Glennie's letter?
Yes, please. It shows the front stairs. So that wasn't a deck. You can see there was just little stairs about 4 foot wide. That was the access to the front of the house there before John built the deck on that side. So there's the proof of it right there. That's what was existing. There never was a deck in the front, and there was only the one door. It didn't have multiple doors with access to a deck. Now, what's considered the rear deck, there's also photos online that show that it was much smaller than what was built after. So what they did build in the back was bigger than what the existing deck was. The existing deck in the rear was to serve as a rear means of egress, is my understanding, what its purpose was. Secondly, it's been determined that this is an existing 2.5-story building. The grade starts from the front door, which is on the street side. This has all been by the building commissioner, has determined this. So it's a 2.5-story building, and the grade starts at the front door. You can call that a basement or a cellar, but it doesn't matter, because Massachusetts state law still says, in how you determine grade, would be by that front door, whether you want to call that a basement or a cellar. It's a cellar, in my opinion, based on the definition in Mass law, but it's irrelevant. I just wanted to clarify those two things.
Thank you.
So where that front set of stairs is, or that side set of stairs, that's where the beginning of the existing deck is right now, correct? It's not that.
Yeah, it flushes out with that.
So from right there, it goes out.
Towards the lake.
Okay,
Right.
And then it goes back to match with what the pre-existing other deck was.
Yeah, then, so.
Matches that line.
And then it goes over all the way across to where that was, so it's way bigger than what was ever there. And in the notes that was being read from Conservation Commission, it said it was, the way I understood it, was that they were saying that it was, John's real estate agent told him that his front deck needed to be repaired for safety issues. Well, that's not a front deck, John, I'm sorry, that's a set of stairs that are 4 feet wide, accessing a single door. John had changed the windows and put in more doors and that. So I just wanted to clarify,
And that would make sense, because I don't believe there's any railings on those steps, which is why he would have to fix that.
yeah, they weren't a nice set of steps. I would agree that they needed to be repaired. But how they were, was much bigger and larger than it wasn't a repair, it was,
Okay. We have heard two very interesting and contradicting ideas about what's going on the same piece of property. We did a site visit last year, and where do we begin?
Well, I think he had a rebuttal.
Okay,
Just very briefly, and I'm sorry, I only have one
that's quite all right.
This was a listing of the abutters, the gentleman's home at 16 Island Road. Interestingly enough, it has a photograph, 16 Island Road, view of Lake Menominee. My client's house is nowhere in that view photo. If my client's house would be right here, you can actually kind of see the back deck, so I'd like you guys to see that, because putting a second story on the view, it's the bottom right-hand photo. You can certainly look at the whole listing document.
Well, I would suggest that his property is a wraparound. So I haven't seen the picture, but my guess is that that picture was taken with the house not in the way, obviously, because the house sits in front of his house. He can show you on his phone what the view looks like currently.
Yeah, her lot goes back maybe 80 feet, my lot goes way further.
What are we looking at?
So,
Ryan's house? And
Is this the back?
the,
Oh, that's the street view, okay. All right.
that's the side
So
that
this
faces,
property we're
that
talking about
faces
is
the
here,
lake.
yeah.
And there's the lake on the pork chop side.
Correct.
so
And I do already have existing skylights there that you can even see from when you come down Menominee west. You can even see it. You can see my skylights from the road there, from the other side of the
Skylights on
lake.
there.
Oh, yeah, I can see it, just there, yeah. So that's on that
my
side.
suggestion from
The
that
trees that
photo,
are in that picture are no longer there?
yes, they have to be replaced by the order of the Conservation Commission, so there'll be some greenery going up there. And I think we tried to make some opportunity to decrease that so that we could actually improve the view. Currently, there's no view there with the single-story house and a 6-foot roof, because when you're in the gentleman's area or on his deck or wherever it is that he might be in his property, when he looks directly to the south, what he sees is the side of my client's home. So just going up is not going to impede that, going up 8 feet from its current height. So I respectfully suggest that the second issue that I think is somewhat of a red herring as well is the height issue. If the building commissioner thought that the plans as submitted created an issue of height, he would have made that part of the referral or part of the application. My client was invited to go to his office, was instructed that the permit had to be revoked because of the issues raised by the abutter, and there at the office prepared the application as in response to what she was being told was the impediment to the project. The height is not an impediment to the project. It is an illusory argument that is intended to confound the issues and prevent us from getting a special permit. If we can go back to the conservation and review the order with conservation, and I can make some adjustment to the trees, I'm happy to try to do that. The shape of the, I don't,
Excuse me one second. Before you leave this picture, can you zoom that picture a little, can you make that bigger?
So-
we can see, can we see the house through the back of this?
Madam Chair, what I'm passing around right now is a drone view of
Oh,
The properties?
the property.
And this is current.
This is current. That was, I'd have to get the date. It was probably a couple weeks ago.
Could you
of
get
my
that
client's
here?
property, is this the
Of your
drone
client's
imagery?
property, yes.
Get that here?
I can't log on to my town email,
Ah.
but it's right there.
The only thing I would say about this is it's very hard to tell any perspective on it. The best way you would be able to do it is a picture from his window towards the lake, like, I don't know how I could assume the angle, it's just a,
The only thing that I could see quickly is my thought, is that this appears to be that back deck.
That's what I
So
thought.
that seems to be like they took the photo, it's a
right,
realtor's,
but where is that photo from?
the gentleman's, it's the
Right,
view of 16.
but, no, I understand, but I'm just saying, like, how it impact, like, standing there is different than standing here.
Oh,
And I'm not saying one thing one way or the other, just I can't really,
I think it's, they moved all the way to the south,
Oh, that's not bad.
Oh, wow.
Ah, man.
Uh-oh.
Disappeared. on
Deleted all
there.
your contacts.
Oh, it does not like to be adjusted.
Answer all my texts, will you?
Okay.
So,
Can
so
I
that
see
depicts it. That was, like I said, like 2 weeks ago. Maybe that was taken. I can get you the exact date in the body of the email.
Very good.
So, I mean,
All right.
that window there, maybe, because if that's
So
up,
I still have
where's-
some questions.
that's his, that's
I mean, we can always
Mr.
continue the
McCauley's
hearing
house.
as well.
You
I
guys
mean,
know
that's
that?
always an
Yeah,
option
okay.
to get more information.
That's Mr. McCauley's house right there.
There's a
And
couple,
that's-
yes.
So this is the angle, which is the kind of the angle you'd have to be at to see the water anyway. I can see
They had no
that
quorum.
window there,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
could be
So
impacted.
we,
I don't
we
know
opened
that
it
the roof
in
would be impacted necessarily.
December,
December.
and then January,
Oh, yeah.
we didn't get posted. And then so we continued
That's a
to
close call.
February.
It's
So,
just hard to, you almost have to be in his window, taking a picture
Position
out.
within.
Yeah.
It's a close call.
That's Mr. McCauley's
Yeah.
house.
It's gonna go up,
Sure.
I mean, imagine this going up another.
that's what I'm saying.
Sure, right, and I don't dispute that.
I think
I just think
this is a
that
good view.
that position is different than that position, because that's the window that'd be impacted, I think. You know, so that, and it's very hard to tell if it would or wouldn't, I don't know. So without being in his window,
Yeah.
it's hard to make a decision on that. Would you like to see? And you can just, give that back to Nicole when you.
Oh, yeah, the shed's there.
Yeah.
That was a good picture. That's a
No,
good picture.
definitely, it's like, they knew what we were gonna be
That's-
dealing with.
Exactly, it's a
120 days.
perfect picture.
How'd you get that? Where'd that come from?
You know, I would have, that's, yeah. Had a feeling. We're good. As soon as she said drone footage, I'm like, oh, it's gonna be Kyle.
I don't know him, but fair enough.
Just, I know that you have questions. I just want to just say 2 or 3 things. I put little check marks on my column. I'll just get them out and they'll be in
Sure,
the
thank you.
record. A building permit issuing is a significant event, and if there's an appeal of the decision to issue a building permit, it comes to this board, absent anybody doing that. And it's been, that deck has been there since 2016. Nobody has filed an appeal regarding that deck to challenge, I think what we've already come to the conclusion that it would be permissible to build that deck with a building permit, and I think we found it in the file. Thank you so much, Nicole. I said small. The shape of the lot is a narrow lot, especially when you've got the septic, the house, and then that rear lot line. There's not too much more you can do but just to build up. And I'm deferring to your calculation of your normal routine on the 50% calculation. I stand on my argument that it's not applicable. My brother disagrees with me. I think that your past practice might be, I think I'm in a place where, you know, arguing with someone who's been doing it this particular way for so many, you know, I agree with that sentiment, but.
We have been going by that 50% rule.
Yep. And I think I'm consuming too much of your time, but that's primarily what. Oh, the mistake of the building permit, I think, is, you know, that it is an existing part of the structure, so just to build.
The deck, are you
Yeah,
speaking
the
of?
current deck on the first floor, it is existing, it's part of the footprint, and that's why I say, I'm building exactly right in the same footprint. It's the exact same thing, it's really only gonna be 8 feet taller than what it currently is right now. And I can get actual dimensions if that's something that the board would like to have. But again, I think the height issue, if the commissioner was worried about that, we would be here seeking relief on the height issue. But we're not, we're here seeking relief just on the special permit issue. Thank you.
So the permit states have, I mean, the application states have 789 square feet, and the new addition will be,
The building permit application, looked like after the fact, my client wrote down square footages on there, and most of the time, my clients are always right, but I think in this particular case that she was inaccurate. I think if you look at the tax identification card, the tax assessment card, if you look at drawings done by Mass Architects, the calculation is coming in much higher.
I'm wondering what is right here and what is not right. If we go by the card, it hasn't been updated to include the deck.
It has not. This is a very old picture.
Correct.
Not sure when the property was assessed.
Is there a way that we can just have a neutral party assess that? So it's not what he said, it's not what he thinks, it's not what I theorize, but it's an actual thing. We do the same thing with property lines. We have someone go measure property lines so people aren't arguing about it. But we're just shooting from the hip here, trying to guess what's right. And I have no idea. I don't know how we get there without
I know what's
accurate
there.
numbers.
What's right
You
there.
know, if you don't know what it is, then how are you making a decision on it? Same thing with the roof. We need to know what the number is. How do we make a decision on something that we don't know? How do you move forward?
Technically, I mean, I think we need more information. I would like to have some information about, you mentioned the Conservation Commission is working with the property to get the fill and the restoration done.
Under the enforcement order.
Okay.
Yep.
So because it's applicable, where is ground zero? How high is, what's ground zero for the height of the
That's my
building?
biggest
Is
question,
it
is where
ground
does it
zero
start?
from the back of the property, which is higher on the hill? Or is it ground zero from the front of the property, which is lower than the, I mean, and what is the slope of the
Well,
land?
what would the current building right now, what is it measured off of? Is it measured off that front door?
They don't have,
It's
they don't
so
have
old,
to
yeah.
because
Right, but if you were gonna tell me how tall that
building
structure is, what would you tell me?
from
Would you
the
tell me?
bottom of the basement, the
You-
basement front door,
That's where you
yes.
would go off of, right? So we have to know something to go off of, you know, we're trying to make up a number out with no reference, and it's just in space. You know, I don't know how you make a decision on that.
Okay. So,
To me, I think the biggest thing is the square footage.
It's 2.5.
I don't know that we have an accurate, regardless of what you want to call for pre-existing but non-conforming, what is the determination by the building inspector on what the usage area is in this building? To make a determination on the 50% rule.
I believe that would probably be best suited for the assessor to go out there and to take a look at the property,
Absolutely.
in my opinion. And have the assessor measure it and make sure the field card is accurate.
At least then we're making informed decisions. You know, if we make a wrong decision, then it's because we made a wrong decision,
I
but
feel like,
it's not a blind one.
right,
I feel like we need that information. We need an updated, in order to make a decision. I don't think we can without that information. That's my opinion.
I would like to also reach out to the building inspector to find out on what, a little history of the permit. The building permit was issued and then rescinded, and the details on that, if he can share that with us.
Any chance?
For
it's the
this
same building
particular,
inspector?
yeah, okay.
Pardon?
Any chance it's the same building inspector?
It is?
It
No,
is,
no,
yeah.
no, no. We're talking about the one that was issued in December and rescinded,
It would have been the same one anyway.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Newton?
Yes, correct.
Yes, Jeff.
So the December building permit history?
Right. And that's information I mean, not necessarily you have to get. We would want, I mean, we can ask our town assessors to update the card.
I just think it's
Probably the town
just
manager.
unclear. I think it's unclear to everyone.
Right.
I'm sorry, it's unclear?
There's a
The
lot of,
actual square footage.
Yes. I'm sorry, my hearing is starting to go.
Okay.
Tinnitus has kicked in early
Okay.
age.
So to recap, we want to know square footage actual square footage.
of existing
Which we
property.
can do on our end. I think we need more accurate roof height measurements, just so we can kind of know what we're
We
talking
need to
need
about.
know
an
where it
updated
starts.
plan, like a plan that's,
Stamped by an engineer?
Finalized with
Or,
everything.
or
And what
more
else, what else?
specific?
Did you have anything else that was kind of ambiguous that, I know you talked about a lot of stuff, but I couldn't keep it all, so.
It was a lot.
But I don't want to do this 3 times, right? I'd like to know everything that we can bring to the table properly one
No,
more
just
time.
the plans, the height, the square footage, which we've already addressed, those were the big ones.
Can I ask if, can we get into the granular understanding of what you were looking for the square footage? And I'm only asking because I've heard a couple of different things.
right.
I would argue I have living space in the basement, there's a bonus room and a storeroom. I'm not including the mechanical room, because I don't think that's, but I don't know what I'm using. Am I using the whole basement?
We need our assessors to check
Define what
They'll know what to
living
look
space
for.
is.
I don't know.
what the current property entails. I mean, whether it's livable or unlivable, we need to know from the footprint up, the decks, everything that's there.
Okay.
We
So-
also need to
Currently,
have,
they're just not outlined.
and we need to have the current conservation updates as to what's expected. So what's the grading of the lot? It looks like there's a lot, I mean, you said 6 inches of, oh, there's another different picture.
This is the property card, the Patriot property card online, and that looks like the deck was freshly
14,
built.
12 feet by
Yeah.
32 feet, yes.
The number's different?
Well, here on the assessor card, the first floor is 960,
That's,
basement's 768, and the deck is 576.
and when was this done? 2021? That's better than the other card that's in the.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's still discrepancies with both.
But we still have to, I think we still have to do it just because of the ambiguity.
Right.
So we'll
You
have
know,
that-
I would also be interested in seeing a picture from your window, not necessarily trying to make it look as bad as possible, but to actually see, like, if that house goes up 8 feet, what does that look like from your,
It's pretty odd.
When you look out at the lake.
the closest window to the road, what does that look like to the lake?
I'd be happy to
know
provide
what I
you
mean? Like-
pictures, but I think it's pretty obvious for anybody just standing on the road who would look at, you know, if you
Right.
looked at the property line, okay, house left, house right, this, you know, I think,
Right. I just think that'll be the least kind
take
of,
some pictures, but you're welcome to come out anytime as well, sir.
oh, sure, I mean, right.
I will.
But I can't
gladly-
submit my memory to the,
Yeah, no, that's fair, I get it, we can snap some photos, not a problem.
Those to me.
Huh?
You can send those to me.
anything else that we want to
There's-
know before we need to do this
Yes,
again?
there's something in my brain that's questioning.
Rattling around.
Yes, and it speaks to the, obstruction of view and the daylight and all that stuff.
And the shading.
Yeah. I know there's a part of Massachusetts general law zoning chapter, I know there's something that addresses the obstruction of view in the zoning law, and I need to just refresh my own personal memory so that I can share it with the board. And I know in previous situations, this board has made a finding in addition to the zoning special permit and the variance in regards to that section of the law. And once again, it was a Lake Menominee property piece, and it was on Menominee Road East that we had to do a determination of a finding, saying what's what, and it specifically addressed the view and the sunshine and all that stuff, and the solar impact. And it's in 40A somewhere, and with 5 minutes, that's what I was trying to do.
In 40A?
But
Yeah.
I didn't have my computer, I only had my cell phone, and it's not working as fast as I know. I know it exists, I know we have to speak to it, I know we need to address it. And for many of those reasons, I think we need to continue this hearing one more month.
Yep, so the next hearing will be March 15th, 7:05.
Will that be enough time for the assessor to go out and do what they need to do?
I'm sure that they can make an exception, given the fact that the time is of the essence.
How about height information, is that enough time to do that?
I'm gonna defer to Mr. Presteri and the contractor. Is that enough time for you to get something from a certified individual stating the height of the house?
The height as the proposed building?
The height and the language in the building code on where it is to be measured.
Where it's measuring from, right? And conservation
Yes, I
expectations.
think
Covered all that already.
We have so many people that have been involved with this project, I'm sure that I can re-engage one of them to give that. And if for some reason I'm unable to achieve that, maybe I can just call Attorney
All right.
Glennie and let him know that I'll need to come down
So
for
would-
further extension.
With the board's permission, I would like to set up a meeting with the building inspector and review his whole situation with the history of the permit and what he did in December. And I will report back to the board in a formal letter from the building inspector, if that would work. Or
Sure.
unless somebody else wants to go and talk to him, ask the questions. But I think it's important to have a conversation and figure out what's what.
I can participate with someone if needed. I mean,
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know necessarily how to drive it,
Okay,
but
we've got to be careful about
Yeah.
violating an open
Yeah.
meeting law.
So there can only be two of
One of
you.
us can go,
Yeah.
but not,
Not it.
yeah.
So two of you can go.
two of us can go,
Yeah,
but not
not
more
more.
than
I
two.
can co-pilot, not a good
Okay.
driver.
Will we be privy
Pardon me?
will we be privy to those findings prior to the meeting? Will you
Sure,
share
I
that
imagine,
letter?
Absolutely, I'll put it in the file. I'll type up my minutes, my notes, or my meeting notes, and provide it to everyone in written. And then the assessor's information, Nicole, you can handle requesting
I
the
will handle that.
information from the assessor. Attorney for the applicant can get the building plans and the heights
Squared away.
squared away. Mr. McCauley will provide some pictures.
Email
Yes.
to me. Don't fall off the ladder.
What else?
So,
What am I missing?
Oh, we're gonna look at Mass General Law regarding obstruction of
that's me
view
too.
and
I-
shading,
I
so,
will
Okay.
talk about that in the finding.
Okay.
If we have to do a quote-unquote finding.
and you're going to share that finding with the entire board or just myself?
May I?
At some point, everybody needs to know it, so.
Well, maybe send it
you
to
and I
her and
will-
she can distribute it.
Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yes, I
Yeah.
can't,
Right.
yes, I will do that.
So conservation expectations, is that something that can be done within a month? You know what I mean, like, you said that-
Conservation, I can get a typed letter from the conservation agent
But can-
regarding
that'll
the
happen.
status of the property currently.
Is that like a bang thing, or is that something that takes a little bit, that they have to go do something, or?
It's a work in progress. I mean, really, because given the, the fact that it's winter, it just happens to be nice out, so they started doing
Right.
it. So I will give you a synopsis from him as far as what he's seen, what he.
All that I'm getting at is that I don't wanna come here in a month and not have everything we wanna talk about settled, cause then we're
Another meeting.
gonna get hung up on it. So if it needs to be 2 months, then, that.
Yeah, so let's plan on March 15th then, if everybody's in agreement, and then we'll work really hard to get everything we need. So we
Just
have,
said something, had a question that led me to think about something else.
I said conservation expectations, and you had like a eureka moment.
Right. We also need, we need to go back to some previous building permits and find out how we have calculated the 50% law. Just so that, I know in zoning in Massachusetts, each application is unique and special and different, and nothing that we do sets a precedent for something else. But historically, if we're doing it one way, we're not gonna all of a sudden do it a different way. So let's just make sure that we're consistent with what we have done over the past 5 or 10 years. So I can think of a few that we need to go back and check and find out how we calculated. And I can remember sitting right here with a plan saying, thank you, it's it's 49.9%, and the applicant proved that to us, demonstrated to us.
That wasn't long ago.
No, it
I
wasn't.
was here for
Yeah.
that.
It wasn't.
Yeah, we just had a recent building permit application get submitted for a property on the lake, and we actually had the engineer certify that it was going to be the square footage.
Okay.
What he said on the
All right.
plans was what the house is
So
going to
just
be,
as long
so.
as we're all clear and that bone of contention isn't something that, I mean, I suppose anybody can appeal it, appeal the decision at any point
Yeah.
anyway, but,
Yes, sir.
So can I just, and I apologize, I'm
sure.
getting most of what everyone said tonight, but you want an engineered plan that shows the current square footage? Is that what you want the applicant to prove you?
That would be
If-
awesome.
Is
Yeah,
that what you want me to try to collect that?
If you could possibly do that, that would be awesome.
And then have some kind of definition on the height of the proposed structure?
Right,
See if I can't get-
including the
Starting
the
point.
new grading elevations if possible.
Okay.
That's not even part.
And do you think you can do that within a month is the question of the day?
I want to give it my very best, and if for some reason I can, I will let my brother know before, so he doesn't have to spend another, is it Wednesday night today? Wednesday night with me here, and I'll come down to see you and I'll explain to you why I couldn't get it done, and I'll ask you for a further date. But I'd love to try to get this done for Ms. Fitch.
okay, so you will get an engineered plan with the height of the house, the current square footage,
Current square
and
footage.
the proposed square footage.
And the proposed square footage.
Yes, I'd
And
like
what
that on
I'm
the
going
plan
to
as well.
ask of our recording secretary who's listening, either at home or by recording, would you please summarize what we each said, what we're going to do, maybe in an email to us ASAP so that we all
Yeah.
can do what we need to do?
Yeah, make it
And
priority.
that include the height of the chimney that's gonna be
Oh,
added?
Yes,
exactly.
is the
Thank you,
chimney
Evie.
included in the house height?
Thank you.
Thanks, Evie.
I believe the bylaw says any man-made structure for the height.
We can confirm that with Jeff.
I'm going to just repeat for the benefit of the transcriber. My notes anyway, so what
Okay.
I'm hoping is about 90% of what we just said, okay? We want to have the square footage, ideally from our engineer regarding the current square footage and the proposed structure square footage. The current square footage would include the proposed, I believe it includes the basement, because we're calling that the first floor, and the second floor, but I will break those down so we can argue about that later, okay? And the decks, they will all be broken into components,
Into the living space.
And all the living space.
okay?
And we won't
Basement.
get the assessors to confirm that as well.
Basement, first floor, decks.
Decks.
And then I'll qualify that as living space, so that there are, like a mechanical room, we can subtract that out or something like that. Is that what you're suggesting? I'm gonna argue against that when I come back next time to see you, but we'll just pass, we'll just get the to-do list down. Living space. Gentleman's gonna provide us a picture of his view from his house. We're going to have some clarity on the current height of the structure, and the proposed height of the structure, including the roof line and then the proposed chimney.
Or anything else that's gonna be above the roof?
Above the roof.
line,
We're going to review a zoning obstruction provision. It may or may not relate to the Menominee Road East application that the chair had
Finding from
discussed.
the-
Yes, so those findings
about the
would be
view
helpful.
and the-
We're going to have clarification from the building commissioner on the history of the December building permit or the revocation of the December building permit.
Yes,
We are going to have a report from conservation as to the status of the event.
yep.
I defer to anybody else if there's something in addition.
I believe
didn't
that just
I
about
think
covered
that's it.
everything.
That's
Yep.
more than enough.
I just have something real quick, just in full disclosure, I mentioned it to Nicole till end of the last meeting, totally forgot about it, but I did want to put it out there, not that I believe that it makes any bit of difference. Voting Day, Super Tuesday, was it November 8th? So I was approached by Mr. McCauley at the polls or outside there, regarding this lot, and that there was a permit pulled for this lot. I told him I could not speak to him about the permit. And he asked me, well, how about the special permit? Do they need a special permit if they're putting on anything that's gonna be, you know, anything more or to the 50% on the special permit, whatever that wording was, that I used. And I said, well, no, they would need to come back to us for a special permit in any of those cases, any case like that, and not speaking anyway about this specific case. So I wanted to make sure I disclosed that now, and so that was right out there, okay?
Yeah, I think you said more words right there than you actually said to me that voting night. And for the record, I had just found out that there was a permit given over, like, on voting day, and that Nicole remembers me being down there, so I saw that was the same day I had found out that they had issued a permit over the counter down there, and unbeknownst to me, and
Just as a matter of right, thank you for,
Disclosure.
for clarification, thank you for disclosing that. But as private citizens, we're often approached.
In the
and
community, right.
Opinions are, our personal opinion, not the same as when we're sitting on this board. So we can have conversations off the side about life in general.
Was not an active,
Zoning in
right,
general,
right.
and it's not influencing your decision in any way tonight.
Ms. Fitch has no objection.
Thank you. Alrighty. Thank you all for this long meeting. And,
Thank you.
we did cover a lot of ground, and thankfully, we have viewed the property and know a little bit of the history of this property. So, that being said, I'd like to entertain a motion to close the meeting and continue the hearing until,
March
let's
15th.
do it all in one motion. Close the hearing, close the meeting,
Close
rather.
the meeting.
Continue the hearing.
March
until
15th.
March 15th at 7:05.
I would like to make a motion to close the meeting and continue the hearing on Island Road to March 5th.
And do I have a second?
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
The chair votes aye. I think Rob got the